The phone call came on an ordinary evening, while I was sitting in this very chair, listening to the creak of the wooden clock on the wall. My hands were busy sewing a loose button on my old sweater, when the words I never expected tore through me like a knife. "Mom," my son said, his voice too casual, almost careless. "We sold your apartment. The money helped us give Emily the birthday party she deserved. Don't worry, she'll never forget it. $150,000 well spent. She's worth it." I froze. For a moment, I thought I had misheard him. My apartment? The home I had worked decades to save for. The place that held every piece of my struggle, every memory of survival. Gone. And for what? A birthday party. Underscore 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 underscore. The grandmother pauses, looking down at her trembling hands, while the child sitting at her feet holds their breath, waiting for more. I remember the silence after his words. My mouth opened, but no sound came out. My mind spun with disbelief. They had sold my home, the one roof I thought would always shelter me, for balloons, cakes, rented chandeliers, and music that would be forgotten by morning. Therefore, that night, when the phone went dead, I sat here alone in the dim light. I stared at the peeling paint on the walls, at the framed pictures of my children when they were young, and I asked myself, was I truly nothing but a bank to them? Was my blood, sweat, and tears worth only a night of laughter in a rented ballroom? But I already knew the answer. Underscore 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 underscore. You see, child, people often look at the old and think we have nothing left to give. They forget the years we bent our backs so they could stand tall. They forget the nights we walked miles in the dark, the mornings we worked with no sleep, the times we gave up food so their plates would stay full. I cleaned offices until my knees burned. I washed dishes until my skin cracked. I took every insult, every humiliation, because I wanted one thing, to give my children a better life than the one I had. Therefore, when I finally bought that apartment, it wasn't just bricks and walls. It was proof that my sacrifice had meant something. It was safety, it was dignity, it was home. But in a single phone call, it was ripped away, as if all my years of struggle had been reduced to confetti scattered on a dance floor. Underscore 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 underscore. The child shifts uneasily, their small voice breaking the silence. Grandma, did you cry? I take a long breath, my eyes glistening. Oh yes, sweetheart. I cried. I cried until the tears ran dry. That night, I walked the floor of this house, room to room, touching the walls as though they could give me strength. I felt like the ground beneath me had opened and swallowed everything I had ever worked for. But then, as dawn crept through the curtains, I stood in front of the mirror and told myself, you cannot break now. You have survived worse. You will survive this too. Therefore, I decided to remember every wound, every betrayal, every lesson, so that one day, I could tell you this story. underscore 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 underscore. Child, life is not kind. Sometimes the ones you trust most will be the ones who wound you deepest. And when it happens, you must choose, will you let the pain turn your heart bitter, or will you let it carve you into someone unshakable? But hear me well, forgiveness and weakness are not the same. There are times when you forgive to free your heart, and there are times when you fight back to reclaim your dignity. And that, my dear, is the path I was forced to walk after that night. Underscore 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 underscore. The grandmother's voice grows lower, filled with fire, as the lamp flickers and the child leans closer, sensing the storm beneath her calm words. They thought I was helpless. They thought age had made me fragile, that I would bow my head and accept whatever scraps they threw at me. But they had forgotten something. They had forgotten who built the very ground they walked on. They had forgotten that every luxury they enjoyed came from my broken back, from my sacrifices, from my relentless will to survive. Therefore, I made a vow that night, a vow not to stay silent, not to let them erase me. If they could strip me of my home, I would strip them of their comfort. If they could betray me for a party, then I would show them that a mother's silence is not weakness. But before I tell you what I did, you must first understand the years of struggle that led to that apartment, the years that shaped me into the woman who would not bend again. The grandmother leans back, her shadow long against the wall. The child stares at her, wide-eyed, their heart pounding with suspense. Outside, the night deepens, the sound of the wind carrying the weight of her words. Inside, her story hangs in the air, raw and heavy, pulling the listener deeper into the past. Child, you asked me how I survived. Before I had that apartment. Sit closer, because this is not an easy story to tell. But you must hear it, because it is the reason why I will never forget, or forgive, what was stolen from me. I was only 19 when life threw its first storm at me. My husband, your grandfather, was a kind man, but kindness doesn't put bread on the table. He worked at a factory, his hands blistered from machines, his lungs filled with dust. He used to come home coughing, but he never complained. He would hold my hands and whisper, "Don't worry, Mary. One day, we'll give our children more than this." Therefore, when he died suddenly at 32, his promise became mine. I had 2 babies, barely old enough to walk, and nothing but a few coins in my pocket. I remember that night, the rain pouring through the roof, the babies crying, my heart breaking. I wanted to collapse, but I could not. Because if I fell, they would fall too. So I went out the very next morning, in the same black dress I wore to his funeral, and I begged for work. I scrubbed the floors of rich women who never looked me in the eye. I washed dishes in diners where the grease clung to my hair. I walked miles, sometimes barefoot, because I could not afford bus fare. But every time I thought about giving up, I would see my babies' faces. Their small hands reaching for me, their eyes wide with hunger. And I would remind myself, Mary, you have no choice. You must keep going. Underscore 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 underscore. Years passed in a blur of endless work. I wore shoes with holes in them, so my children could wear shoes without. I went without dinner, so they could have enough to eat. I studied bills by candlelight, my eyes burning, trying to make every penny stretch like a mile. Therefore, when other mothers slept, I stayed awake, sewing clothes for neighbors in exchange for a few dollars. I learned to turn old bread into soup, to turn scraps into meals. And slowly, I climbed out of the mud. But child, don't mistake me, it was never easy. There were days I thought I would break. There were days I stood in the kitchen, holding my stomach from hunger, while my children laughed in the next room, never knowing that I hadn't eaten in 2 days. And yet, I endured. Because that is what mothers do. Underscore 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 underscore. I still remember the day I signed the papers for that apartment. My hands shook as the pen touched the page. The lawyer asked me why I was crying, and I told him, these are not tears of sadness. These are tears of survival. That apartment wasn't just walls and windows. It was proof that I had kept my promise to your grandfather. It was a crown on my head after years of crawling through the dirt. Therefore, when your father and mother sold it without telling me, it was not just money they stole. It was the story of my life. It was my dignity. It was my husband's promise. Underscore 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 underscore. The grandmother pauses, her voice trembling. The child's eyes are full of tears now, small fingers clutching the blanket. Grandma, why would they do that to you? I smile sadly, brushing the child's hair back. Because, sweetheart, sometimes greed blinds people. Sometimes love grows cold in the hearts of those you raised. They see only what they want, and they forget the price you paid to give it to them. But remember this, no betrayal comes from strangers. The deepest cuts always come from the ones you love. Underscore 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 underscore. After I learned what they had done, I went back to that place in my memory, the years of hunger, the endless work, the sleepless nights. I reminded myself, you survived then, you will survive now. Therefore, I did not fall to my knees. I did not beg. I did not scream. Instead, I stayed silent. Because silence, child, can be more powerful than words. But silence is not the same as weakness. While they celebrated their glittering party, I sat here, remembering everything I had built, everything they had destroyed. And deep inside, I made another promise, a darker promise. One day, they would learn the cost of underestimating me. Underscore 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 underscore. The grandmother's voice grows steadier, colder now. The child shivers slightly, but cannot look away. You see, child, the world teaches you two things, how to endure and how to fight back. I had endured all my life, but now it was time to fight. Not with fists, not with anger, but with wisdom, with patience, with truth. And the truth, child, is always sharper than a knife. Therefore, I began to plan. Quietly, carefully. They believed they had won. They believed I was too old, too powerless. But they had forgotten one thing: I am a woman who has already survived death, hunger, and heartbreak. What could their betrayal do to me that life hadn't already done? But still, I waited. I waited for the right moment to strike. The grandmother leans closer to the child, her eyes dark but burning with determination. And when that moment came, child, though, when it came, it turned their world upside down. Child, when people betray you, they expect you to crumble. They expect your silence to mean defeat. But silence can be a storm gathering behind the mountains, hidden, patient, and unstoppable. Therefore, while your parents spent the money from my apartment on that foolish birthday party, I watched. I listened. I waited. At first, I thought perhaps guilt would strike their hearts. Perhaps your mother would come to me one night, sit at my feet, and whisper, "Mom, I'm sorry. We made a mistake." But that day never came. Instead, I heard laughter. I saw photographs of balloons taller than houses, dresses glittering under lights, and tables filled with food enough to feed a whole neighborhood. And I thought to myself, Mary, they have forgotten your hunger. They have forgotten the nights you stitched by candlelight. They have forgotten the mud you crawled through to give them more. But forgetting has a price. Underscore 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 underscore. Do you know what I did then, child? I went back to the very same lawyer who helped me buy that apartment all those years ago. He was an old man now, his hair as white as snow. But when he saw me, he remembered. He said, "Mary, I never forgot the day you cried at my desk. I never forgot your courage." Therefore, I told him everything. I told him how the apartment was sold without my permission, how the money was squandered on luxury, how I had been left in this little house to rot. His eyes grew hard, like stones, and he promised me he would help. We went through every paper, every record. And do you know what we found? That the apartment was still legally in my name. Your parents had forged my signature. But forging the signature of a woman who has carried her life in honesty is like spitting into the wind, it always comes back to your face. Underscore 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 underscore. Days turned into weeks, and I kept silent. I let them believe I was weak. I let them enjoy their glittering lie. But inside, I was sharpening my truth like a blade. Therefore, when your parents called me one Sunday to join a family dinner, I accepted. I walked into their grand dining room, chandeliers above, laughter echoing off the walls, plates full of food. They smiled at me as if nothing had happened, as if they had not ripped my soul apart. But I smiled too. Because that night, child, was the night I revealed everything. Underscore 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 underscore. I waited until everyone had eaten, until their bellies were full and their tongues loose with wine. Then I stood. My hands trembled, but not with fear, with the weight of justice. I placed the documents on the table. Do you know what these are? I asked. Your father looked confused. Your mother laughed nervously. Mom, please, sit down. Don't make a scene. But I did not sit. I opened the folder, and one by one, I laid out the truth, the deeds, the forgery, the betrayal. Their faces changed as the papers spread before them, like shadows swallowing their joy. Therefore, I spoke with the voice of every sleepless night, every hungry day, every tear I had ever swallowed. You sold what was not yours. You took what I bled to earn. You thought I would stay silent, but here I am. The law knows. The truth knows. And now, so do you. Underscore 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 underscore. The room fell silent. You could hear the clock ticking on the wall. Your father's face turned pale, your mother's lips trembled. For the first time, I saw fear in their eyes, not of me, but of the truth they could not escape. But I did not raise my voice. I did not curse. I did not cry. I only said, you stole my apartment, but you cannot steal my dignity. You cannot erase my sacrifices. And one day, child, one day soon, the world will make you pay for what you've done. Underscore 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 underscore. After that night, the law did the rest. The lawyer filed charges, the documents spoke louder than any words. Your parents lost more than money. They lost their standing, their pride, their name. The same people who once clapped at their grand parties now whispered about their disgrace. And me? I sat right here, in this small home, rocking in my chair, watching the storm they had created destroy them. Therefore, child, I tell you this, revenge is not always a fist striking back. Sometimes, it is silence. Sometimes, it is patience. Sometimes, it is simply letting the truth burn brighter than lies. Underscore 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 underscore. The grandmother's voice softens now, her hand resting on the child's cheek. Do not mistake me, sweetheart. I take no joy in their fall. My heart is not made of stone. But I could not let betrayal go unpunished. Because if I had, then all my sacrifices would have been for nothing. But listen closely, the lesson is not about revenge. The lesson is about respect. About never forgetting the hands that fed you, the shoulders that carried you, the love that built you. When you forget, when you betray, life will always remind you, and not kindly. Therefore, promise me this, child. Promise me you will honor those who give you everything, even if it is small. Promise me you will not let greed blind you, or selfishness poison your heart. The child nods, tears glistening in their eyes. The grandmother pulls them close, her voice a whisper now, like the closing of a chapter. Because if you remember, you will live with peace. But if you forget, you will face the storm.